Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Doc. I'm your host, Jennifer Filzen, and today I have with me Michael Fenster M.D., who is also known as Chef Dr. Mike. Welcome, Dr. Mike.
Hey, Jennifer, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you. Okay, from what I have seen about you and heard about you is you use food as medicine. And as a person who loves food, I am so interested to hear what you have to say about this. Tell me about your business, please.
Well, sure. And actually, we go a little bit further than just food as medicine. So I'm a cardiologist. And I can tell you, as a cardiologist, I have a hard time getting patients to take an aspirin after they've had a heart attack. So you can imagine all the trials that we just treated food as medicine is getting people to kind of get into that. So one of the things that we do that is a little different, I've developed, which I teach at the University of Montana, a program called culinary medicine. And instead of just looking at food as medicine, or sometimes people say, food as fuel, which is very nutrition centric. So we're just kind of focused on those nutrients and those biochemical and physiological pathways. We focus on the relationship that we as individuals have with food, because that's what it's really all about. So I'm sure, if you and I were sitting around sharing some food, you would be able to tell me some stories in your life in which, food played a very, important role in that experience, maybe to the success of that experience. So romantic dinners, nights with friends, birthday parties, weddings, wakes, etc. And all that, as we're learning now over really about the last 10 years, has huge, huge impacts on our health.
So true. So true. I mean, they say you are what you eat, right? And if you're eating the vegetables and the plant-based foods that help your cell structure benefit, then please do. And if your body needs the fats, I mean, we don't realize, unless perhaps we look at like an analogy like a car, right? Cheap gas is going to burn differently than the premium gas, and the same thing goes for food, right?
Well, sort of yes and no, because I'll go back to my previous statement in that you're not a car. You're not just a machine. You're a human being. And, I'll give you an analogy. As a cardiologist, there are studies ad nauseum showing that people that have a good, strong social support network, people who are married and in loving relationships, have a statistically significantly reduced risk of having heart disease. And then if they do have a heart attack, it's less serious. They recover better. They have less chance of having a repeat event. And we correct for all the other things, our cholesterol, et cetera, blood pressure, et cetera. So what does that tell me, as a physician scientist? It tells me that, wow, love is a very powerful medicine, but I can't write for Jennifer to get 6 units of love every morning. And so because we can't quantify it and prescribe it, we tend to ignore it in favor of things that we can quantify. A cholesterol level, I can give you a pill, monitor that, change the dosage. But as a scientist, does that mean that that variable is not important? No. Actually, for another example, again, looking at these softer edges, depression is as a potent risk factor for heart disease as any cholesterol level. But again, I can't write you 16 international units of happiness with your coffee every morning. So because of that, we tend to focus, and rightly so, on what we can quantify, but it doesn't mean that those other variables aren't important. And so that's why in culinary medicine, we're really examining that totality of the food experience beyond just what we eat. And even with what we eat, what we've really seen, and what I wrote about over a decade ago in The Fallacy of the Calorie, was that it's much less about nutrients and much more about ultra processing. And so we have to really go back and re-examine our whole approach. The whole science of nutrition, if we look at it, is based on roughly about 150 known nutrients. There are over 26,000, I said that right, 26,000 known compounds in food, and a whole lot we don't know. So we're trying to sort out health based on less than 1/2 of 1% of all the individual components. And unfortunately, because nature is a master, marketer and packager, as you mentioned when you were talking about eating these whole foods, a lot of these compounds work in synergy and in certain ways together that we can't replicate when we try to take it apart and look at a singular effect of a singular nutrient and a singular outcome.
Whoa, so much to unpack. I love how you explain it. Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like I kind of sort of know it, but then you put it in a whole new perspective. Tell me a little bit about your personal journey. What took you into this particular field? You said you started in cardiology, or did you start with food, or was it a combination of both?
I actually became a professional cook before I became a cardiologist. So, in working in through college, and like a lot of people had to, make money to get through college. I actually started as a dishwasher and worked my way up to what today we would call, because I'm pretty old, we would call it executive chef. There were really no celebrity chefs outside of Julia Child and maybe Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet back in the day. Then I went off to medical school, but I always kept that love of food and was involved in the food industry in various ways, shapes, and means. So I've always had that love of food combined with my love of medicine. Cardiology is my specialty. And then I actually had some personal health challenges some decades ago that really forced me to go back and look at what I was eating and what the data was, et cetera, and found that a lot of things that I was even telling patients, there wasn't good science for it, or that there was contradictory science for it. And when a lot of things that sort of started out and were put out there had become accepted as conventional wisdom without really an adequate, substantial database dating back to the 1970s or even earlier. And that's where I really started looking at, for example, one of the things that we just mentioned, the processing effects of food. And fortunately for me, a very great scientist, Carlos Monteiro at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, about the same time started looking at that as well. And so they published a number of scientific papers over the last 5 years or so that have finally come out showing the really drastic effects on our health that are due to the ultra processing of food, far and above just looking at it from a strictly nutrition label or looking at that label and trying to sort out what's going on.
Amazing. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Everybody, we've run out of time, but if you want to get to know Chef Dr. Mike, please look up chefdrmike.com. You can also find him at IMBAS.health. That's IMBAS.health. IMBAS is a word, yes. And truly, Chef Dr. Mike, you are amazing. If everybody wants to find out more about you, you can also go visit Buzz TV at iwannabuzz.com. And again, thank you so much for watching, everybody. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.